Today was an extremely bullish day on the ES, so I'm going to show you how you could have had winning trades all throughout the session, and you could have been done very early today on a Friday. So let's get into it and take a look at the chart. So I'm going to zoom out here first, just give you the overall picture of what we're looking at. So here's where we opened in the overnight session over here, and as you can see, we kind of had this short-term downtrend break played out, and then it started a big bullish uptrend that finally broke over here, and we kind of are just going sideways in a range right now. There's not really much going on there, and it's kind of having a hard time deciding whether or not it wants to come back up and test the high, which I'm still expecting after a break of a trend like this. We're expecting a test of the high, or at least an attempt that gets really close. But most likely we're going to get a new high at some point today. And if it can't make that new high, it will probably aggressively come back to this purple line was the previous. That was earlier. I had that as the all-time high from back here. So that was the previous all-time high. And we haven't even come back to test it pretty much. We broke through, tested it here, and then that was that. So let's get into this, talk about the trades, and finish up the week. So here we go. So if you look here, you had this uptrend, possible uptrend that you could have drawn pretty early around these kind of closes. It kind of moved on me a little bit as always, but basically from the low through kind of these areas here, you had this uptrend working. So this here was the first kind of trade setup I saw. It was right after the open. There was some data pre-market, so I wasn't really trading this. If you were trading it, there's a couple of possibilities here. So you can see here, for example, we had this short-term uptrend break, and then it pushed up. This was at about 5:07 a.m. So, I mean, there's a possible, but that's just a first entry. There's just not really very much good stuff there. You do get a break, this kind of weird trend working down, but again, there's data related to this, so I would have just stayed out of this and waited. And you can see it got a little sideways there, and then we kind of got into the open right after this bullish candle here. The market opened up, and the way I saw it was right here we had this low. Now at this point we're making higher lows overall, so we had this low, and then we came down, had a low here. Zoom in a little bit more. All right, so we had a low here, and then we had another low here that failed and gave us kind of a bullish candle. The reason this is marked green, because it's a failed second entry short with the trend above the EMA. It's a very positive sign overall. Basically, you had this break of this downtrend. You couldn't make a new low, so you're expecting it to go the other direction. And so what I saw here was a failed second entry short above the EMA. The reason I marked it green is that it's pretty sideways right here. I mean, I don't have it drawn, but like you could see kind of that there's this kind of tight sort of range working. So again, I didn't draw it originally, but you know, you were hitting this level and rejecting it so many times. So you have to expect that there's a possibility that this just doesn't really go anywhere and it keeps going sideways. So, but you're so close to the overnight, you're so close to yesterday's close, and you're expecting to fill that in the regular session. So that's why I liked it. So I marked it green just because of the resistance. You're basically longing into resistance, and you don't know for sure that it's going to work out for you. But it's mostly bullish. You have this uptrend working in your favor, pretty much confirmed at that point. So I like that trade. You then come up here and you get this move up. You get a break, and this one gives you a pullback first entry, pullback second entry. Now technically this one's a little weird because you have a pullback first entry because it actually ticks higher here, and then it makes another low here and then comes up again. So you kind of get a second entry on this green bar. So this is kind of like a third entry, but it doesn't make a new low here. You can see that this is sort of like an equal low, so for this low. So you can kind of treat that like a higher low. So it's like a second entry with a higher low, or you can just kind of ignore the fact that this is just like one simple tick and see this all as one swing. Pull back, one swing, pull back, two swings. So you can kind of treat that like a second entry. Pretty decently bullish bar. Now it does come after this doji. However, I like the fact that it makes the low one tick. It gives you that kind of double bottom there, and then it kind of pushes up. So that's a pretty safe trade in my opinion. It then pushes up into an up channel. Now it's also right off that bigger trend line, so I did like it for that reason too. At this point, you're thinking, all right, we're bullish and we're probably going to push to the all-time highs. And we were talking about that in Discord this morning, that we're most likely going to push to the all-time highs. So then it comes up, we get a break here, and we get this one here. Now I marked this one green because it's kind of a hidden second entry. So it's a pullback first entry. This is sort of a hidden, by the way. When I say hidden, I mean on a shorter time frame, you would have seen a attempt higher. Then it pulls back here, and it kind of gives you this weird movement where it double bottoms sort of there, pushes up, pushes back down, ticks down one tick, traps all the shorts and stops them all out, and then it rockets up. So I like it for that reason. It's kind of a trap there, trapping a bunch of shorts in the uptrend right off of this bigger trend line. So I marked it green just because it's not really a perfect second entry. It's more of a hidden second entry, but that was a really good one. So then we kind of come up here, and from this point we come up, and you could argue that there's a short here, and the reason I like this one is that it comes up and it's a break of this trend line and a move to a new high, and then that's a really bearish candle. This is a very, very aggressive setup, by the way. And the reason I also even marked this, because usually I wouldn't suggest trying to pick a top like this on here, is because if you scroll back, this is basically the high previously where we saw rejection. So you kind of have to expect that when you have a move like that, that you could end up rejecting there temporarily. Now, you don't want to just pick candles like this. I want to be very clear. In an uptrend or a down, you don't want to just pick a candle like this and say, oh, that's a really bearish candle, I'm going to short below it. Because it has to be within the context. And the context here is that there's a micro uptrend that broke and got a new high. So you're expecting a little correction. And so if you took that I'm fine with that one with the context of previous highs from the day prior, some rejection there previously. You expect that there's probably some people that had limit orders there that were going to push this thing down. But again, you're just looking for a scalp there. You're not thinking that you're catching the whole top here. So I was looking at it like that. Again, it's aggressive, it's green. Now what it ends up doing is it actually forms a bigger uptrend. Now I drew this two ways. I drew one here and this thing moved on me. Why? It always does that. It's really obnoxious. But anyway, I had this uptrend right here. So what you can see is that you have this shaded one. And then I drew a bigger, like a wider one, just in case, because sometimes, you know, there's a wider trend channel that's in play. So what you actually get here is this uptrend that's working, really no trades in there. You do get a bearish candle there, but it's within the trend. And again, that's why you don't just take a short on a bearish candle. Would have failed on you anyway. So you get a break here, and I marked this one green because what you get here is a pullback first entry, pullback second entry. Now, this is a green because you don't have a ton of space to the high. I mean, it's really close here. At this point, you've made an all-time high, and it's only 1.25 points to the high. But I think that one is relatively safe if you take it on a 4-tick scalp and then maybe give yourself, like, you know, just basically looking for a scalp to the high. You don't know for sure, but to me it looks like a trap because you have this basically two-legged correction and it just goes crazy. You can't enter that on an engulfing bar because that's a doji right there. But I do like that one as a trap on the shorts here. And at this point, you also are kind of confirming that wider trend that I had. So it's possible that there's a wider trend channel in play, and you had plenty of room if there was. So I did like that one. And then it comes up, and you get this kind of correction, but really no entry there. But what I saw here, this one is also marked green just because of how it's set up. But basically, you have a double top here. So if you look here, it's basically 1 and 2 double top. So when you have a double top, what you can do a lot of the time, what's going on over here, by the way? I just wanted to take a look at my range that I had drawn in real time. All right, I saw that we were basically bouncing back at this price again, so that was interesting. So we have a double top here now. So that means that you have a first entry, second entry, or you can reset the count at a double top and start the count from here, which would give you first entry, and then this one's a second entry. But if you look at this as a second entry, what you can also, this one you could enter on the engulfing bar because this is almost a full solid. So what I would do is have a stop order one tick above this bar. Basically, it's kind of a trap. So what you're expecting here is first entry, pullback, second entry, and you have plenty of room back up to the high there. So if you had your stop like one tick above here, you've got 2 points to work with to the high, actually a little more than 2 points. So again, if you were trying to scalp for 6 ticks, you would have got it pretty fast on that trade. Basically taking no heat. I mean, it pretty much goes up. It comes back against you very briefly, and then it goes. So that was a pretty good one. Relatively low risk. I mean, if you're entering here, you're not having a huge stop at that point. I think your stop is, I guess it's 3 points. It's not huge, 12 ticks. All right, then you come up and you get this move here, which is if you count off of this low, you actually get a first entry, second entry short. And at this point, you're just far away from the EMA. So this is one where you have a break of this bigger channel and two swings to a new high. Break, swing one, pullback, swing two to a new high. So that one to me is a decent setup for a short even though it's an uptrend. You're just at this point so far extended. So again, you don't want to pick tops every time. It's better to wait for a lower high, which you actually get right here. So on this one, you end up getting this move where right after this, so either one of these works. This one is a really low risk 6-tick bar. So you enter this one and you get a nice entry where you can ride those both down. If you did enter on this one, you would have taken some heat unless you got out at the bottom of this. So you would have taken a little heat on this one and whatnot, but it ends up working. So that you could tell the smarter entry was the lower high on that particular case. Now, get this short-term downtrend working. You get a break, and then this is a possible short. The only reason I marked this one is because at this point you have a first entry pullback, second entry that failed, and then it comes up and gives you basically a lower high up here. It's almost like a triple test of this area. So you kind of have a 1, 2, triple test that's a lower high each time. So if I put this line here, basically you can see that it's 1, 2, and third test, and that is a decent spot to take a short. So you could take the short there just to ride back to the EMA. But again, it's a little bit aggressive because you're still overall in an uptrend, and you don't know for sure if this thing's just going to keep continuing there. So then you have this down channel working, and at this point, you're thinking that you're going to ride this thing probably back to the trend line. And so you can kind of see here, you don't know for sure, of course, but here it confirms on this candle basically down here. So you tap it there, come down, tap it again. Now what I like about this one is you have this new high here. So you have a first entry, pullback, second entry that fails. It's a failed second entry short, rejecting the EMA. And at this point, for me, I was also looking at it like there's a possible short-term kind of downtrend right here with a break, and it needs new low, and you might go all the way back to the trend line, which it actually pretty much does. So if you entered basically here, which on this one you could probably enter this on the engulfing bar and just kind of take that one down, and it's a pretty big bar, but if you enter on the engulfing bar, your stop loss isn't that huge, and so then you go down. And then it ends up correcting here a little bit, but then it's still within the trend channel. Finally, it gets down to the low, and it basically comes up above here. Now, again, I think my trend channel moved on me slightly. I think I had it just a little lower before, but that's fine. So anyway, this is my wider channel. I didn't really consider this a break here because I think I had it drawing a little differently, but the thing moved a bit. So then here you have, from this low, you kind of have this slight up channel working. And you get a, first entry here, second entry that kind of just starts going sideways. So I did draw this as an up channel here. It's really not much going on there. I mean, honestly, I'm just going to remove that because it's in the way. You basically have a range. You kind of break out of the big channel into this range. You can see here's my original big channel. You do have this working down, but you don't make a new low on that. So there's not really much going on here. I just drew these channels here as ways to stay out of some of the trading for some of this. And what you can see, I'll try to zoom in a bit here. You don't really have much to go on here. You don't have a new low. And you still are expecting a new high, which is up at this green level, but you just don't really have either. You're just kind of now sitting sideways, and the volatility went way down, and the volume went way down. So at this point, it's just sideways action, and it could very well just continue like this. Yeah, and it's possible. I had this drawn here. It looks like, maybe this is slightly higher. Maybe it's like this, but there's just not much to go on here. You don't really get a whole lot of action. There's not really any entries for me. After over here, I just don't really like any of the entries because it's all just too much dojis, too much sideways action. Nothing really conclusive. I mean, yeah, you can count certain second entries and failures and whatnot, but they're not great because they're mostly sideways. So like from here, for example, you get this new high, you get a pullback, first entry, pullback. You don't really get a proper second entry here because the way that the swing works, it just goes into sideways action. Sure, some of them work, but they're just not great setups. So I think realistically, this was the where you end your day is this down move, and then after this, it kind of just got too sideways to really get anything good. And that could change, but I'm just going to wrap it up here and call it a day. It's been a really awesome day for me. So overall, it's been an awesome day, awesome week, and I'll see you soon.